Everyone, so welcome to the Operation Wallacea Travel Advice talk. So my name is Rachel and I am part of the travel team. So I've actually worked with Operation Wallacea for coming up to 13 years. So I've actually worked out on a number of the expeditions, including our Peru, Madagascar and Indonesia expeditions. So I'm very familiar with how the expeditions work and also about the kind of travel aspects. So hopefully this talk will give you a good understanding of how all the travel side of the Operation Wallacea expedition works. Okay, so how does the travel work? So how it works is you are responsible for organising your international flights. So this is getting you from your home country to your expedition country. Don't worry, we are on hand to help with that and give some advice, which I will go on to in a minute. But essentially you're responsible for that part. And then once you arrive into your expedition country, we are then able to help organise all of your travel to get you to your expedition start point. So the first bit is talking about booking your actual international flights. So the first thing to do once you've booked on is to ensure that your expedition details are correct. So when you book on, you'll be given access to what we call the portal, and on here we'll have your expedition. So you need to check your expedition type, so make sure that the breakdown of the expedition is correct, so i.e. forest and marine, or if you're doing a forest only expedition, obviously making sure it's the correct country and that it's the correct dates that you think you signed up for. If there are any issues and it's not what you think you signed up for and anything is incorrect, then you would please contact our seminars team at expedition@opwall.com and they'll be able to look into this for you and get it sorted. Once you've done that, the next step is to check the resources page on the website for your country. So there is a specific travel advice page for each country, which will have the arrival and departure information for your specific expedition. So you just need to really check this carefully. You need to check, for your expedition type. So like I mentioned before, you have different types of expeditions, so forest only, marine only, etc. Because different expeditions, even if you're going to the same country, could have different arrival and departure information depending on what expedition you're doing. So for example, both Croatia and Mexico finish on different days depending on whether you finish at the marine site or whether you finish at the forest site. Here you'll be able to find out which international airport you need to arrive and depart into within that country, what day you need to arrive, what day you need to depart, and at what time. So it has all of that important information that you need to know. If you are unsure of anything, then please just contact the travel team at flights@opwall.com and then we can confirm the exact details for your expedition. So how do arrival and departure times work? So when it comes to arrival time, that is the latest you can arrive into the stated airport in order to get the in-country travel required to get to your expedition start point. So we have allowed enough time for you to get through passport control and baggage pickup in order to join the in-country travel to the expedition start point. The departure time, that is the latest you can depart from that stated airport. So again, we have allowed time for you to get from the expedition endpoint to the airport. We've allowed for check-in time. So therefore, if it says you can fly at 4 p.m, that means that your flight can actually be taking off at 4 p.m. The transfer from the expedition site would most likely get you to the airport around midday, so allowing plenty of time for traffic and for check-in. So you kind of don't need to worry about allowing for those extra bits. We've done that already for you. So those arrival times and departure times are actually the times that you can be landing and the times that you can be flying out. So for some countries, for example, Madagascar and Indonesia, it may be that you're asked to arrive and depart a few days before your expedition start date and end date. So you might be like, oh, well, why is it saying that I have to be in 2 or 3 days before the expedition actually starts? And the reason for this is there is actually a few days of in-country travel to reach your expedition start point because where we're working is that remote. We have had a few volunteers ask in the past, if they can arrive or depart 10 or 15 minutes early based on the flights they have found. In most cases, this is fine, but please do check with the travel team. There is some flexibility, but it really can vary between expeditions, and we would have to check with our in-country travel partners. So a bit of advice for you, definitely before you book any flights, make sure that you shop around. Check the prices across a few different sites. Good places to start are Skyscanner, I think that's one that most people have heard of, Expedia, there's also Trip UK, which is also a good one. A little trick that we do suggest is make sure that you are incognito mode on your search browser. This means that when you come back to look at flights, the prices won't automatically be higher. Don't just take the first quote that you find, as you might find cheaper on a different site. This is definitely why we say it's important to shop around and kind of do your research first. When you look at flights on various search sites, for example Skyscanner, the flight prices quoted will usually be listed with various different travel providers. So for example, GoToGate or Opodo. So ensure you check out the reviews and make sure that they are decent travel providers and offer a good service. For things like if you're at the airport and your flight is delayed or your flight gets cancelled and then you need to call your travel agent, do they have a 24-hour service? That kind of thing. And you can usually tell from the reviews if they offer that good service. It's always worth also looking at flights direct with the airline, for example through British Airways or Ryanair, and actually going direct through them, as often it can be cheaper, as there isn't then the service fee added by the travel agent. So do ensure that your flight tickets include a checked bag. Quite often when you look at quotes, I know particularly like on Skyscanner, often it won't include a bag as a standard, and it's once you start going through that it will then ask if you want a checked bag, but just make sure, because you will need to have a checked bag to make sure that you can fit all your equipment that you're going to need for your expedition. If you would like the travel team to check over any flights before you book them, then please do not hesitate to send them through. It's something that we're more than happy to do. If anything, we would actually recommend it, just so that we can double check your arrival and departure times and just make sure even like your connection times and everything like that look good. So we do actually have a travel partner, so they're called Ison Travel. So usually they will get in contact with you unless you opt out from hearing from them. So they will get in touch and just kind of ask you where is it that you're going and your dates, and then they'll be able to provide you with a potential quote. The first thing to note is that you are definitely not obliged to use them. We are fully aware that they aren't necessarily the cheapest, but they do offer some services that you might find reassuring, particularly if you're a nervous traveller or if you've not really travelled before. So for example, they are obviously a very reputable travel agent. They have a 24-hour emergency helpline, so if there are any issues throughout your travel, then you can get in contact with them and they should be able to assist. And obviously they've also been working with us, so they know our routes, they know our dates, and they know our arrival and departure times, so they can usually help if you've got any questions when it comes to that side. But like I mentioned on the previous slide, do shop around before accepting a quote through them. Like I mentioned, they might not necessarily be the cheapest, and so if you have found cheaper flights, firstly they might actually be able to price match. It's something that they can potentially do, not always, but it's definitely worth asking. But if you have found cheaper flights elsewhere and you want to go with those, then that is absolutely fine. Like we said, you're responsible for your flights, so you can book them with whoever you want. It's just Ison are there if you do want some help. Okay, so I mentioned previously, if you have any questions regarding your flights or the travel side of things, then you can obviously contact us. So I've just put the contact details here for your reference. So it's flights@opwall.com, and there is also our office number, so you can give the office a call, between office hours 9 till 5:30. So do contact us, and any questions, we should be able to help. Okay, so once you have your flights booked, you then need to upload them to your portal. We then get notified that you've put your flights on. If you are travelling before or after your expedition, then it might not let you enter your flight details if they are too far in advance or too far after the expedition. If that is the case, then you can just email them to us at flights@opwall.com and we'll be able to upload them to the portal for you. Okay, so going on to internal travel. So once you have your international flights booked, we help organise getting you to your expedition start point. So this is what we refer to when we're talking about your internal travel. It's from your the international airport to your expedition start point, and then obviously the return journey as well. So most countries that we work in are remote and are hard to reach using public transport. Hence, we help organise this in-country travel. So the length of this internal travel depends on the country. So for some, it's quite short. For example, just a bus journey for Croatia. But for some others, it can be a few days travelling. It can even involve further flights, boats and buses. So as an example, Indonesia, you actually have further flights, internal travel flights. So we have in-country travel partners based in each country we work with who help organise this travel. So the advantage of using our travel partners is that we use only reputable companies for both the transport and hotels. You'll also have a representative with you the entire time in case of any issues. So the internal travel is an additional cost to the expedition cost. The cost of this internal travel package will vary depending on the country and also what exactly you require based on your international flights. So if you are arriving a couple of days early or departing a couple of days later and you need any additional nights accommodation, then we can organise that for you and we add the cost to your standard package. So to get a rough idea of the price, if you go onto the expeditions page on the website for your specific expedition, there is a costs to consider tab and it lists kind of all the various different extras that you might need to be aware of for your expedition. So if you are diving, it will have the dive hire cost. If for that country there is a visa cost, it will have information like that on there, and it will also have the cost of the internal travel, the standard package amount on there for you, so you can get an idea of the cost. We organise the whole internal travel package, so this is everything from airport pickup and drop off, in which you'll be met by an OPWALL representative, usually holding a big Operation Wallacea sign. But do not worry if the best flights you can find arrive a day or two early or depart a day later. We can help organise any extra nights accommodation if needed on either side. So that's something that we can also do. Part of your standard package might actually already include a night's accommodation, just because of the way you might need to be departing kind of 6 a.m. in the morning to start your travel, so it's a case that you have to arrive the day before. If you want to get an idea of exactly what your country's internal travel package includes, there is information about this on the travel advice page, which I talked about earlier. It's on that resources page. It's under each country and under the internal travel section on the travel advice page. We can also help create customised internal travel packages, particularly for those maybe that are travelling independently either before or after their expedition and maybe don't quite need the standard package and are happy to kind of meet us at certain points that are slightly different to what we already provide as the standard package, and this is something that we are able to help with. So you just need to let us know if you do want anything slightly different, something customised, and we can do that for you. Occasionally we have students that request, so this is ahead of the expedition, to leave site early by a day or two due to a commitment back home that they can't get out of. In some cases it can be possible, but this is something you do have to check with the travel team, and it has to be arranged prior to the expedition. So for some countries it is completely possible, and for others it isn't, and it is really done on a case by case, because it might also be dependent on how many numbers are on site that week for that expedition. expedition as to whether we can accommodate that or not. So you do have to check that with us, and please do not assume that it is automatically possible. There is usually a hefty additional charge for this as well, as it does require a private transfer. Okay, so how does it work with the internal travel? How do you actually get the quote? So once you have your international flights booked and you've uploaded them to the portal, we then get notified that you've uploaded your flights. We will then take a look at your flights and work out, when you're arriving, when you're departing, and work out exactly what you need based on that information that you've provided, and then we'll provide you with an internal travel quote. So if it looks like you're arriving a couple of days early, we will add on a couple of days accommodation for you. You then need to approve that that internal travel quote, that you're happy with that internal travel quote. Obviously at this point it's when you can let us know if you don't want those extra nights accommodation, or if there's anything that you do want to change. Once you've confirmed you are happy with the quote, we will then turn that quote into an official invoice. That invoice will then be uploaded onto your portal. And then our in-country partners will also get notified at that point of exactly what you need, and then they will get that booked for you. So like I said, the invoice will go onto your portal, and this is how you can pay for it. You can call the office and pay over the phone, but the easiest is to make the payment through the portal like you do for your other expedition payments. And we do ask that the internal travel must be paid 8 weeks before your expedition start date. Otherwise, we can't confirm that your internal travel will be arranged. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention here was lots of universities actually have what they call travel grants, which is a pot of money which can only be used specifically for travel. So I definitely recommend that you go and speak to your university if you've got like an information desk or student services, or speaking to your Go Abroad department, and just asking if they're aware of the university having a travel grant, or take a look on the website and have a look. And like I mentioned, this is specifically only for the travel part, so it usually can't be used towards your expedition fee, but it can be used towards flights and your internal travel costs. And like I say, lots of universities have these, so it's definitely worth going and having a look, and if so, applying for it. Just to kind of run through the timeline of how it kind of works for the travel. So we would usually advise that kind of around from Christmas time onwards that you start looking at flights and think about getting your flights booked. We usually recommend kind of January, February time, March at the very latest, to get your flights booked, so that we can then get your internal travel organised. So then from end of January, February onwards, you'll start being contacted by the internal travel team with that travel quote to see if you're happy with it. Around kind of the February time, usually it's the point at which the country manager for the expedition that you're going on, so for example Mexico or Honduras, the country manager for that specific expedition will be in touch with information about a expedition training webinar that they should be running kind of in March time. And also with a link to a Facebook page in which all of the volunteers from the Mexico expedition or the Honduras expedition will get added to. So it's a good opportunity to meet others that are going to be on the same expedition as you, and you can also see if anyone's going to be travelling at the same time with you. This is a good time if you're a nervous traveller to see what flights other people have booked if you're wanting to fly, potentially seeing if you could get a flight buddy or something like that. And like I mentioned, payment usually is 8 weeks. For your internal travel payment is 8 weeks before you go on your expedition. So that can kind of be from about mid-April time. Once you have booked your internal travel, you get sent an in-country travel document, which kind of goes through in a lot more detail what exactly is covered as part of your internal travel. And then usually around May time, so just kind of before your expedition, so when you're kind of really getting ready for your expedition, you should be sent further information from both the travel team and your country manager, just covering any like last minute information regarding both your expedition but also with regards to your internal travel, or important things like any important contact numbers. We often include maps of the airport, exact meeting points and all of that kind of information. So we kind of guide you through it all right up until your actual expedition. Okay, so I think I've covered most of the travel side. What I did want to talk about now was insurance. So we do ask that you get full comprehensive travel insurance. We would recommend that you get this now, so it covers you in the event that if you have to cancel your expedition ahead of time, due to any unforeseen circumstances, then you are covered. We have had students that have got ill or have even broken their leg, weeks in the lead up to an expedition, and obviously haven't been able to go. So, you want to make sure that your insurance will cover you for anything like that prior to your expedition. But other things you also want to be looking for, we recommend that it covers medical expenses and repatriation. So this is for when you're actually on the expedition. Delays or cancellations to your international travel. Lost luggage. If you're planning on bringing something like a camera or any expensive equipment, that it covers loss or damage to personal belongings. And if you are joining an expedition which includes a marine week, then you will also need to be covered for scuba diving. So once you've taken out your insurance policy, please make sure that you do upload them to the portal. Okay, so the last thing that I just wanted to run through was some frequently asked questions. So I have covered some of this in the main presentation, but I think some of these, we get asked a lot, so I think it's important just to kind of cover them again and just to go into a little bit more detail. So as an example, I need to arrive into South Africa for 10 AM on Friday, but flights don't arrive until 11 AM. Is this okay? We often get asked this question on how flexible our arrival and departure times are. The short answer is to these queries are they assessed on a case-by-case basis. So please make sure you contact the travel team before booking any flights that fall outside of those specified times. Sometimes we are able to make exceptions. We can also book private transfers, which is at an additional cost to yourself, but there are some countries where there just simply isn't that wiggle room at all. So it really is a case-by-case kind of situation. Another question we get asked a lot, where would you recommend we book our flights? So I kind of did cover this in quite a bit of detail in the talk. We often get this question, where can I get the cheapest flights? And we don't blame you for asking. Everyone wants to make sure that they're getting the best deal on their flights. So we don't have a single top site that we recommend. Some sites on one day can just be really great, and then on other days not so great. But we do have a few top tips for our volunteers. Firstly, always shop around and check prices across a few different sites. I mentioned those already: Skyscanner, Expedia, Trip UK. And also secondly, like I mentioned as well, just making sure you look through the airlines direct, as they can often be cheaper. And do see if you can speak to our travel partners and see if they are able to price match for you. Okay, another question we often get is, do I book my flights before I hear from the internal travel team? Yes, please do. So the internal travel team won't contact you to arrange your internal travel or package until we have actually booked your international flights and you have added them to the portal. So we need to have that information before we can put a package together. Another question we get asked a lot, I'm travelling after my expedition, but the OPWALL portal won't let me add my flights. I did mention this in the talk, but if you are travelling before or after your expedition, and if it's a certain number of days on either side, then it won't let you put them on. If this is the case, then you just need to email them to flights@opwall.com and we will be able to upload them to the portal manually for you. Okay, another question we get asked a lot is how long does it usually take someone to get in contact about internal travel? So once you've uploaded your flights onto the OPWALL portal, the internal travel team will aim to contact you as soon as possible. Internal travel quotes are sent out from February onwards, with the deadline for organising internal travel being the end of April. But what I would say is do please bear with us. It is actually a manual job that we have to sit and go and do kind of one by one with each volunteer, because often we have to customise the internal travel packages for each volunteer based on their needs, and obviously we have a huge number of volunteers coming away with us, so we do work through the list as quickly as possible and get those invoices out, but there can be a bit of a lag, so yeah, please just do bear with us. Another question we often get is if I arrive 2 days earlier, where do I meet the OPWALL team? So don't worry if the best flights you can find arrive a day or two early or depart a day or two late. We can organise any extra nights accommodation if needed either side. The advantage of using our travel partners for each accommodation is that we obviously use reputable companies for both transport and hotels, and you'll also have a representative with you. However, if you would rather organise your own accommodation pre or post expedition, we can help create those customised internal travel packages, and in that case we will then give you a specific time and location in which you need to meet the OPWALL team. One thing that I would just say here is that if you do choose to book any of your internal travel separate to Operation Wallacea, if there are any issues with that, then we aren't able to assist. It's kind of at your own risk, so just to kind of bear that in mind. Another question, I'm happy to go ahead with the internal travel quote, where do I pay for it? So once you have approved the internal travel quote, we will then get everything booked, that you will get sent an invoice, and this will appear on your OPWALL portal, the same as your expedition payments. So once you have confirmed you're happy to proceed, you can make that payment on your portal, and just a reminder that that must be paid 8 weeks before your expedition start date. Okay, so I think that's covered some of kind of the frequently asked questions that we get. I hope you found this talk useful. It's kind of covered any queries that you had about the travel side, but if you have got any more questions, then obviously please do just get in touch. And one final thing is obviously just to have an amazing expedition. It is a trip of a lifetime, and so yeah, I wish you all a great expedition.